Yeah.
Angie, can you hear me?
I can. Can you hear me?
Sounds like you're coming through my computer, not through the owl. Say something again for me.
Hello? Can you hear me?
Yeah. Can you hear that okay? Ellen, can you hear her okay when she speaks? Okay. Great. Thank you.
Thank you. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you soon. I can see your name, but not your
Oh,
screen.
let me fix that. Great. Thank you for letting me know. I'll start my video.
There you are. All right, good. All right, and now.
Spoken to this agency,
Let's see.
no solution, that's easy for them. Is that all of their data comes from the US Census.
Okay, who can start sharing when someone else is sharing? Post only. Okay, and one participant can share at a time. Okay, so I should have enabled you, Angie, to share your screen.
Shall I test that?
Yeah, please.
Okay.
They're not living in,
No, they're not, but they're working in Vermont.
I mean, they're coming across the lake.
Yeah, yeah. Lots of them.
Oh, I know. Yeah. I mean, yeah, to an extent. I mean, one of the big, I've worked a lot over the lake, over in New York. One of the big reasons is there's no jobs over there. So they drive over here.
Right.
It's not that they can't find housing there.
Well,
I mean, you can go find housing cheap.
there actually are. I mean, we did a survey through the employers in Madison County. And lots of people would like to live here who work in the hospital and college and various.
So did you try, Angie, and we were not able to?
I'm just looking for,
Right, but who's gonna sell their land,
sorry, let me try one more time.
you know? Junie Junior that inherited the farm. Wants top dollar.
There you go.
So you can see the story map?
Yes, I can.
Excellent.
Okay. Would you take it down for just a second so I can see people as they come in, so I can take a roll call?
Absolutely.
Now that we
Great.
know you can do it, yeah, that'd be great. Thank you.
It doesn't cost them anything to sit on it.
No,
If it's ag land, they're paying a reduced tax rate.
that's right.
They own it outright.
Right.
I mean, one of the interesting things I've seen is that now that the farms are becoming so consolidated, that their equipment is at a scale where they can't get the equipment into these smaller pastures, fields,
That's right.
and you're seeing more and more and more
Hi, Pam.
of these areas that are getting just basically.
You're muted,
up.
but that's okay. I can see
I
you.
mean,
Say hello.
Bring your sheep, bring the goat, whatever, to gnaw the place down because they can't get, there's nobody coming over to brush it.
That's what we have at the farm. We have the sheep coming. And then what?
Costs money to have people come in and brush on
Well, we have a farmer that comes to hay once a year. And then the sheep come.
Yeah.
And he
If you have
sells his
hay, yeah.
hay. He sells his hay to the sheep farm for the winter.
it. Right. If you've got a hay field, that's one, I mean, but I'm saying that they're increasingly, you're finding that in these sort of semi-suburban areas where there's.
Tim.
No, there's no one sitting there. Oh, hand me that.
Bird.
I'm so sorry. Please sit down. Some serious looking thing here.
Hello.
They're frozen.
Good. Welcome.
You got a tractor?
Andrew.
I mean, my lord, where's all the cards at? The cards?
Cards are on the back table right there.
I mean, not all up to date, but.
Okay.
I think we got a lot of them. I think we got most of them.
You got Karina's?
That would be the one I don't have. Yeah, you might be right, Ross.
I think I'm recognizing.
Oh, sorry.
Did you get me? Erwin, I'm sure I have one for you, Andrew.
Yeah, Ross is over
You've been around for a little bit. Joe? Hi, Joe, can you hear me? All right, cool.
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
We,
Hi, Adam.
Hello, Cheryl, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Good. I am good, thank you. Okay.
I had everything up.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12,
Can I get
13,
your
14,
name tag for
15.
you?
So Joe, we have quorum.
What's your name?
Some people are still joining us, but we're all
Great.
set on quorum.
I will give it, about 60 more seconds or so and
Okay.
Yeah.
Great.
Cool.
And Angie, would you wave hello to Joe?
Hi, Joe.
Angie,
Okay,
how's it going?
So Angie is our guest for this evening.
Great, great.
Doing great. Nice to meet you.
Nice meeting you.
And Joe is our chair, Angie. Excuse me. Complete that introduction.
I'm the chair at the standing desk at the moment, so.
Yeah, a lot of people. Yes. Hi, Ron. Hi. Oh, good. Okay, Fred?
Okay, if there's no one else waiting to get in, we can get started. If folks could please put themselves on mute before we get started. Just because as a reminder, under the new state law, all these meetings are recorded and posted online, so it's helpful if people are muted unless they're talking things. So thank you so much. So with that said, it is Wednesday, October 9th, 2024 at 7 p.m. And I will call a meeting of the Aston County Regional Planning Commission to order. And the first item on our agenda today is a program. We have Angie Allen, who waved to us just a moment ago, from the Department of Environmental Conservation Watershed Planner for Basin 3, the Otter Creek Basin, and she will be presenting the draft Otter Creek Tactical Basin Plan for comment by the full commission. And you can look at the draft plan on your agenda, the full commission package that was sent around a couple days ago. It is page 1. There is a link to it right in the middle there. So with that, I'll hand it over to Angie.
Great. Thank you so much, Joe. I really appreciate it. And thanks for having me. I'm going to share my screen to present a story map that I prepared, and it should take about 20 to 25 minutes. As a disclaimer, this story map hasn't been uploaded to my Basin 3 webpage, but it will be in the near future. If you're interested in checking out the story map between now and the end of the public comment period, which is October 24th, please let me know and I can send you the link to that. It's publicly available. It's just not on my website. So without further ado, I'll share my screen. And hopefully you all are seeing the story map. Great. So as Joe said, my name is Angie Allen. I'm a watershed planner in DEC's Watershed Planning Program in the Water Investment Division. And I'm here to present an overview of the draft of the Otter Creek Tactical Basin Plan that's currently out for public comment. Tactical basin plans are, in the simplest way to say it, they're strategic guidebooks that are prepared by the watershed planners in the watershed planning program, but they're really produced for the Vermont Agency of Natural Resources. And they're intended to protect, maintain, enhance, and restore all of the surface waters across the state of Vermont. So you can think of them as like large-scale watershed management plans. And because they are large-scale watershed management plans, we really employ a collaborative approach to the adaptive management that we use in the river basins. Basin planners collaborate with state, federal, and local partners to do the work that we do in the basins. And we have 15 planning basins across the state, and we update the basin plans every 5 years. So we have a tactical basin planning process that's a cycle that goes through kind of broadly 5 steps. And I'll walk you through those just for awareness. But this is the same process that we use in every basin across the state. We start by going out and monitoring the surface waters. Surface waters means lakes and ponds, rivers and streams, and wetlands. We don't do anything with groundwater, just to be clear. After we monitor, we do assessments and we identify where we have water quality issues or where we have water quality waters rather that are high quality waters, and where we want to then go forth and identify strategies to protect or restore those waters based on their condition. We gather and incorporate public input and feedback into the basin plan as we update the draft, which is part of what we're doing here tonight, gathering public comment and feedback into the plan before it's finalized. We publish that plan and then set about accomplishing and implementing the actions that we identify together that are the most important pieces of work that we want to do to support surface water health in the basin over the upcoming 5 years. And so there are a lot of reasons that folks should care about clean water. I'm sure you can think of your own reasons personally why you care about clean water, but you know, money talks, and a lot of people are quite interested in statewide investments in clean water funding as well as basin level investments. And so what we've done at the state level is put together an interactive dashboard where you can take a look at state investments by basin. And so what I've shown here are state investments made in Basin 3 from state fiscal year 2016 to 23. And in some, we've invested over 76 million into clean water projects in this basin. The majority of those funds went to developed lands, which includes roads as well as agriculture. And it's important to note that this does include federal funding as well. In this dashboard, though, you can really dig around in the investment. You can sort and filter by different sectors. You can sort and filter by basin, and you can also do that by state and federal funding options. So it's a pretty interesting way to take a look at where your tax dollars are going with respect to clean water projects in this basin and across the state. But Basin 3 is why we're here this evening. This plan that I've prepared with the help from all of the statutory partners and internal and external stakeholders is also known as the Otter Creek watershed. It's about 1,100 square miles in area. It spans 46 towns and can be divided into 27 HUC 12 sub-watersheds. The basin is about 59 to 60% forested land cover. About 11% of the land cover is wetlands or open water, which is actually quite a lot. And developed lands make up about 2% of the area of the basin, and agricultural land use comprises about 21%. The Otter Creek is the longest river in Vermont, and it drains into Lake Champlain at Ferrisburg. The northernmost portion of this basin is composed of the Little Otter and Lewis Creek watersheds, and both of those also drain to Lake Champlain. There are 39 lakes and ponds in this basin that are 10 acres or larger in size, and 4 of those are noteworthy as being the best lakes in the basin, having good water quality, intact shoreline, high biodiversity, few invasive species, all of those characteristics that we associate with things that we like to see happening with respect to our lake water bodies. So really the best of the best. Those are High Pond in Sudbury. It's also a Sentinel Lake, which means that our Lakes and Ponds program is sampling it on a regular basis, so that we're continuing to collect data on it at a regular time step. Mud Pond, Johnson Pond, and Sugar Hollow Pond are also identified as high quality in this plan. You can see their lake scorecard results if you take a look at the basin plan in more detail. Excuse me. There are quite a lot of wetlands covering this basin, so it's important to note that where we see high quality wetlands in the basin, they tend to be in more remote areas of the basin as well as at higher elevations. And examples of sort of the best with respect to wetland habitat and wetland ecosystems are those that we classify as Class 1 wetland status, and we have two of those in the basin. They're Beaver Meadows Wetland Complex over in Ripton, and then also the Tinmouth Channel Wetland Complex. As a part of preparing an update for the basin plan, we like to reflect back on the past 5 years, the body of work that we've completed as a part of this portfolio, and kind of give you a synopsis of what we've achieved together. With help from all of our partners and volunteers, we've accomplished quite a lot. The 2019 Basin 3 plan included 56 strategies that we were set to pursue. And I'm pleased to share out that 93% of those strategies are either active or complete. And I'm currently working on drafting the Basin 3 report card, which is a report to be included in the Vermont Clean Water Initiative Performance Report that'll be published at the end of this year. That will include a list of detailed updates for each strategy identified in the last basin plan. So if you're really interested in the nitty-gritty details of each of the individual strategies, that's the report for you. And if you're interested, please let me know. I'm happy to share out a link for where you can find that information once the draft is complete. Next, I want to walk through some examples of projects that have been completed in the basin from 2019, when the last plan was published, until 2023. I'll note that the lists are not intended to be exhaustive, but if you're interested in seeing a mapping interface where you can explore projects that are active or have been completed in the basin, I encourage you to check out the Clean Water Project Explorer. It's a really fun mapping interface, and we have a YouTube video about how to find clean water projects using this mapping interface. So, diving into what we've accomplished in the river sector, partners have restored and conserved 73 acres of river corridor through easements, as well as 12 acres of floodplain restoration. Partners have planted 23 acres of forested buffer and are actively developing and implementing buffer projects. 32 of the 40 towns already have local hazard mitigation plans, and I note here that you should check out Appendix B, because that's really a town by town tabular listing of all of the municipal protections that exist currently. So what that can do for us is to help us identify where there may be gaps or opportunities to work with towns to increase their municipal protections over the next 5 years. We also provide grant funding to staff at the regional planning commissions, both the ACRPC and the Rutland RPC, to help us populate that table that is Appendix B. So Hannah and Barbara at the RPCs did a fantastic job of helping me compile and review that information. So please take a look at that. Something else that happened that is noteworthy as far as the monitoring side of our work is that we worked with the Watershed Management Division to monitor quite a few lakes and streams in the basin for chloride concentrations, and we did find elevated levels in 5 of our streams. So I've listed those here. It should be no surprise that those streams tend to be in more urban, more developed landscapes and associated, we think, with application of road salts. And so what we've done is to then craft an explicit strategy around working with contractors and towns to educate about the appropriate use of road salts and the appropriate application of road salts. I've lumped lakes and wetlands together just in the interest of time. So lake watershed action plans have been completed for Lake Dunmore and Fern Lake. That's all in one plan. And we're currently implementing projects for both of those water bodies that were identified as a part of that LWAP, as the acronym that we use. Chipman Lake is a potential candidate for a lake watershed action plan. And 12 of the 30 lakes that we assessed received poor scores for aquatic invasive species, which suggests that we have room for improvement where aquatic invasives are concerned for some of our lakes. We were able to assess 178 wetlands in the basin using the Vermont Rapid Assessment Method over time, not just from 2019, but going back in time. And 687 acres of wetlands have been conserved and restored through easements. In the developed land sector, 30 of the 44 municipalities in the basin already have stormwater master plans complete. From those plans, we've pulled 83 priority stormwater projects, and they're entered into the database and can be viewed by partners if they're interested in implementing those projects. Stormwater treatment practices have been used to treat existing impervious surface as well as new impervious surface, and all towns have completed their road erosion inventories, and many are working to update those to comply with the updates with the municipal road general permit that came out last year. In the agriculture sector, excuse me, I need to take a drink. In the agriculture sector, conservation tillage and cover cropping practices continue to be the most popular field BMPs. Over 67,000 acres of agricultural conservation practices were implemented, and over 6,000 acres of nutrient management happened in the basin. In this plan, we identify surface waters that should be protected because they're very high quality waters. Pathways to do that include stewardship efforts, local protections, conservation easements, and land acquisitions. But I want to highlight the work that we do to manage surface waters in a way that supports a full suite of uses that are valued by the public at a class B2 or better, and B2 just means that they're in good condition. So our goal is to have all of the surface waters across the state be in good condition for uses that the public values and thinks are important. So some of those designated uses include things that you all probably enjoy, like swimming, boating, fishing, aesthetics, and things like drinking water sources and irrigation. The plan identifies those waters where we have monitoring data that indicate conditions either meet or exceed the Vermont water quality standards, and we call those out as either A1 or B1 for various uses. And when we know that we have these high quality waters, we can protect those through a couple of different pathways, either through the anti-degradation policy of the Vermont water quality standards or by upward reclassification using one of these pathways. So reclassification, class 1 wetland designation, or designation as an outstanding resource water, or ORW. There are a lot of really high quality waters in the basin, so that's the upshot. The downside of this is that there are too many to really go into detail with you folks about this evening. So I just pulled this map to give you a sense of the number of stream segments that are actually candidates for reclassification because they're in such good condition. There are 25 shown here. There are 9 additional stream segments that are recommended for further study. 2 ponds in the plan are recommended for reclassification, and 1 is recommended for further study. 2 wetlands, as I mentioned, are already Class 1 wetlands, and then 1 is identified as a Class 1 wetland candidate, and that's the Otter Creek Wetland Complex. We also identify priority waters for restoration in this plan, and DEC goes out and monitors and assesses chemical, biological, and physical attributes and status of surface waters to ensure that they either meet the Vermont water quality standards, or if they don't, we identify why they don't and the pollutants of concern. And we do that every 2 years and create the Vermont priority waters list to identify those waters where we need to do some restoration and where they don't meet standards. We put those into 2 different categories when we note that waters are failing to meet the Vermont water quality standards. They can either be listed as impaired or altered. Impaired means that the waters typically have a total maximum daily load plan in place or an alternative plan if no TMDL is required. Essentially to control the pollution, have a known mechanism by which we're going to address the pollutant of concern. Altered waters are those waters that are affected by things, are degraded by things like aquatic invasive species and maybe altered by modified flow regimes. There are 22 rivers in the basin that are impaired, and I should note again that this is as of 2022. So an updated list is coming out this year. The pollutants of concern as of 2022 were nutrients, E. coli, and mercury in fish tissue. 8 lakes are impaired, and the primary pollutants of concern in those were phosphorus and mercury in fish tissue. There are 8 lakes that are altered for aquatic invasive species. And the primary species of concern is everybody's least favorite, Eurasian water milfoil. The map that I'm showing on this particular screen is the lakes listings. So as I mentioned, there are 8 lakes that are listed as impaired, and those are shown here. And there are 6 streams that are flow altered as of the 2022 priority list. The most prominent TMDL, total maximum daily load, that we are working with in Basin 3 is arguably the Lake Champlain phosphorus TMDL. We are in phase 3 of the implementation plan to meet the goals of that TMDL, and it's included as a part of this draft. It's important to note that this draft is still under review by EPA, and this portion of the plan is going to be combed over by our colleagues at EPA. So there may be minor changes to this section of the plan, the phase 3 content, but we don't expect them to be significant. But if those changes are significant, we will certainly report back out on those. We present information in the phase 3 content for this implementation plan to by source sector, so agriculture, developed lands, wastewater, rivers, forests, etc. And we do that in tabular form and graphical form. We try to present information through a number of different visual representation pathways so that folks can get an understanding of the information and the content for the phase 3, not just via text. This table is one example. We denote the total load, the estimated target reduction, and the reduction required for the basin by sector. We're reducing phosphorus through regulatory and non-regulatory initiatives across all of those land use sectors that I just showed you. The state does bear the ultimate responsibility to ensure that the goals for these reduction plans are achieved, but individual permit holders, such as municipalities or landowners, will continue to be responsible for meeting regulatory requirements. In 2019, we passed the Clean Water Service Provider Act and have been partnering with and working closely with those entities as well as the Basin Water Quality Councils to achieve non-regulatory water pollution reductions. And some highlights to note as part of this phase 3 content that is in the plan in state fiscal year 2022, about 17.8% of the overall TMDL phosphorus reduction goal for this basin was met. 21% of the agricultural reduction goal was achieved, and 10% of our developed lands goal was achieved. I'm not going to dive into the details of this screen, but it is important that you know this information is out there to give you the basis for clean water service providers, how those were established. The clean water service provider for Basin 3 for Otter Creek is the ACRPC. And they've been working closely with their Basin Water Quality Council for a number of years now. And it's just been a pleasure to work with both of those entities. I did want to scroll back up just a moment. I did want to highlight that Basin 3, the Basin 3 QUISP is close to being on target to meet their 3-year reduction goal of 231 kilograms of phosphorus. And so just hats off and kudos to them for really just being proactive and getting out there and finding projects to implement and being excellent collaborators. And it's just been a joy to work with the folks at ACRPC. And I'm really pleased to report that they're currently undergoing the reappointment process. We're reviewing the documentation that they've provided currently. And, you know, from my perspective as a watershed planner, I just look forward to the good collaboration and progress that we've been able to achieve together continuing into the future. So more to come on that. But this information is there if you're interested in kind of the breakout of clean water service providers and basin water quality councils. The phase 3 plan that is presented in this draft tactical basin plan also lays out the estimated total phosphorus reductions for the next 5 years by sector. That's what this table shows. The 2028 target is presented alongside the final year reduction target by sector. I don't expect you to really dig into the details of this. You're welcome to as you have time, but it is important to note that the phase 3 content is the most detailed content that we've presented to date with respect to the Lake Champlain phosphorus TMDL. And every phase that we undertake, we intend to present, you know, more and more and be able to track and account better the phosphorus reductions that we're able to achieve. So always trying to do a bit more with each phase that we undertake as a part of presenting information in the tactical basin plan updates. The implementation table in this tactical basin plan is presented in chapter 5, and that outlines the strategies by sector that we're going to use to achieve those phosphorus reduction targets. Many of those are actually carried out by watershed partners like the Clean Water Service Provider in the basin, ACRPC, among others. The implementation table in this tactical basin plan update includes 47 strategies, and there's also a monitoring table that's just below that in chapter 5 that has 36 monitoring priorities for the next 5 years. So the major strategies by sector are presented, as I said, in chapter 5. I'll walk through a few of these now, but in the interest of time, I don't want to do too deep of a dive, but I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have. In the agricultural sector, we want to continue to implement nutrient management plans and agricultural best management practices in priority watersheds, as well as assisting farmers in accessing equipment through local rental programs. We identify focus areas and funding sources in chapter 5 as a part of the implementation table as well. In the stormwater sector, we're providing technical assistance as well as funding to develop and implement projects identified through stormwater master plans. We're also working with schools to encourage them to participate in the Green Schools Block Grant, which helps if they're 3-acre sites, helps them with funding and technical assistance to develop projects and implement those projects. In In the road sector, we're assisting municipalities in updating their road erosion inventories and prioritizing and implementing road projects to meet the municipal roads general permit. We're also developing private road phosphorus reduction estimates and completing.
This is just
Hey, folks, if everyone could just put themselves on mute, it would be helpful because they're recording. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Developing private road phosphorus reduction estimates as well as completing private road segmentation and assessments. That's ongoing currently. In the wastewater sector, we have strategies around assisting towns that are interested in implementing village wastewater systems. Another thing that we do is in the education space, helping septic owners learn more about septic system maintenance and alternative systems. We do that through an outreach program called Wastewater Workshops, and we partner with wastewater staff to put those on. We've had a lot of success with lake communities in hosting us to come out and do those presentations. And it's, as much as wastewater doesn't sound like it would be fun, they actually can be. So if you or anybody in your community is interested in learning more about a wastewater workshop, please let me know. I can help facilitate that event. The river strategies, river sector strategies. First and foremost, everybody's favorite is riparian buffers. It's one of our most, if not the most cost-effective and best community building project type we have. We are also encouraging and assisting partners in developing and implementing projects that are identified in stream geomorphic assessments and river corridor plans. With an eye toward achieving the Lake Champlain phosphorus TMDL target reductions in this sector. We're also really keen to work with partners to design and implement high priority bridge and culvert replacements as well as dam removals. These help improve aquatic organism passage, stream geomorphic compatibility, as well as flood resilience. Lake sector strategies. Again, developing those lake watershed action plans and implementing projects identified from those where it's appropriate and there's community interest. We want to maintain and build the capacity for our aquatic invasive species programs. We do that with some of our partner organizations that apply for Lake Champlain Basin Program funds to fund greeters at various lakes where we have known aquatic invasive issues. So Moncton Pond and Bristol Pond, the Lewis Creek Association helps keep those staffed up so that we can alert boaters when they're coming and going from the lakes in the summer about the threat of aquatic invasive movement from one lake to another. We also support lake-wise assessments on priority lakes, again, if there's sufficient community interest or engagement. The wetland sector strategies are we provide outreach and technical assistance for Class 1 assessments, stakeholder discussions, and we'll help develop petitions if there's interest. We've had discussions around the Otter Creek Wetland Complex that were sort of successful until they weren't. There are so many towns involved with that particular complex that we kind of grind the process itself kind of ground to a halt. Several years ago, Zapata and myself were working with towns to present the information around that, but it really stalled out. So if there happens to be renewed interest in the future or other Class 1 wetlands are identified and there's an interest in engaging around a petition or developing a petition, we're here to help. One of the strategies is to increase the size of wetlands and their function through taking on and implementing wetland restoration projects. And one of the ways that we're able to prioritize those sites is looking at the wetland restoration potential scores that exist on the ANR Atlas and various assessments that are generated through consultants, through our wetlands program staff, and the like. So hopefully we can move forward with some good wetlands restoration work in the next 5 years. The forest sector strategies that we're hoping to make progress on in the next 5 years include identifying and prioritizing those forest road segments with known water quality impacts. We are working on a forest land erosion assessment tool, which has a mapping layer and interface that folks will be able to interact with to help with the identification of these areas, as well as then going out and doing the forest road erosion inventories on those segments once we identify those. We're also encouraging land conservation and enrollment into the use value appraisal program where landowners are interested. And I would say it's especially important in those sensitive areas where we know there are drinking water source protection areas. So how do you get involved? You're already involved. Thank you so much for your time and your attention, letting me be here tonight and listening so attentively again. I really appreciate it. Learn who your local watershed partners are. Ask how your town's improving water quality. Please take a moment to look at the the draft of the Otter Creek Basin Plan. I would be happy to answer any questions that you have now. If you want the comments or questions that you pose to be included as a part of the public record, I'm happy to address those via responsiveness summary that I'll compile and include at the end of the final plan. I just request that you put those into the chat in writing or email me directly in writing so that I have your comment or your question verbatim and can respond to it with a level of accuracy and detail that I would like. But I'll stop now. Thank you again for your time and attention, and I'll take any questions.
Thank you so much, Angie. So yeah, if anyone has any questions, jump in. I'm sort of limited in what I can see right now because of the screen share. So, but Adam, if you see anyone there in person that has a question, if you want to call on them, and then we can move to virtual.
Great. I think Ellen and Tim and Ross all have questions. So who wants to go first?
Hi, Angie. So I have a question that I've always wondered about with regard to the basin plan. You had stated in your review for 2024, there are 22 stream segments that are listed as impaired in 2022. In 2020, I see less than 22. So I'm wondering if in the document, we can show over time how the impairments have changed, whether they're going up or going down. Is that possible?
Sure. In a comparative sense, meaning that we could look at the previous priority waters list and sorry if you hear my daughter in the background, it's near her bedtime, so I apologize for that. Yeah, so we could look at the 2020 priority waters listings and compare where new waters have been added to the list or where waters have been removed. But just to make it easy, I can say that Jerome Pond was added to the list in 2022, as well as let me get the reach level information for you. Little Otter Creek from River Mile 4.2 to 7 was added. So we had 2 additions to the impaired waters listings, 1 stream and 1 lake.
What I'm really wondering about is the time component, since the basin plan is done every 5 years and the 303D list is every 2 years. It seems like we would have a good amount of data that could be provided to show which way we're going based on the 303 data. And it's hard to find that. It's listed in the last basin plan under chapter 3, but not specifically. You have to actually pull it out of the figures. It seems like that's good data, and it's data that we should be using to measure our work.
I definitely agree with your comment. I think it has to do with the format in which we present this information and the scale that we're presenting it. So every 5 years and at a river basin scale is challenging to draw out those reach level changes or changes by water resource. We do try to do that, but when the priority waters lists are published on a time step that is shorter than the basin planning cycle, it does present challenges, and I agree with you. We do the best that we can do. We try to come to present to the public and share out where things have been put onto these lists and removed from the list, but it's not a perfect match. There's a bit of a mismatch, and we recognize that.
Tim?
Yeah, I just had two quick questions. First under the RAPs, the riparian buffer. I believe we are not, capable of allocating funds for direct purchase of land. Is that true?
That's true.
Clean water service providers are
Yeah,
not.
the clean water service providers are not eligible for the purchase of agricultural lands that are flood prone. Is that integrated into the budget of the basin plan? Outright purchase of agricultural lands instead of creating and planting buffers, just simply taking it out of row crop.
So, conversion of land use through the purchase of agricultural lands to take it out of agricultural land use is not something that we fund under this basin planning work that we do. If it happens, it can be something where we would obviously see some, if the land use goes to one that is a forested buffer or another land use that is out of ag, it could be one where we might gain some phosphorus reduction crediting just through the change in land use associated with that, in a similar way that we might when we enroll lands into the use value appraisal program or set aside an easement or something to that effect. So there may be a way to track and account for the phosphorus gained when land use is converted in that way, but we don't provide funding directly to take lands out of agricultural land use.
And the second question was, thank you. And the second
Yep.
question, just in the forest lands road erosion inventory, is there direct compliance with the U.S. Forest Service?
Compliance in what way with the U.S. Forest Service?
There's a fair amount of Forest Service road in the Addison County region that has ongoing impacts. This subject just came up. That's why I'm asking. And one of the bigger problems voiced by some of the towns was lack of maintenance of those federally owned roadways that are impacting municipalities. And here we have all these efforts to improve on our runoff when we've got a federal money and a federal agency in control.
So we are actively pursuing those projects on state lands, in forested lands. So doing road erosion inventories on our own lands and our own holdings. Forest Service lands are, as you say, federally controlled. It doesn't mean that we can't partner with Forest Service to implement some projects on their lands and work collaboratively in the same way that we might do a dam removal project or something to that effect. But as far as maintaining their roads, they're in charge of maintaining that road infrastructure. And so I don't know that we're not invoking actively these clean water funds to implement projects on Forest Service road segments currently. Again, it doesn't mean that we are against partnering with the Forest Service if there's the opportunity to do a project collaboratively, but that would have to be a project that would be identified and entered into in a collaborative agreement. So we're definitely starting with state lands and pursuing forest road erosion inventories at this time.
Thank you.
Yeah, I had a question. In your presentation, you mentioned phosphorus, chloride, aquatic invasives. I'm wondering what other issues or potential contaminants that cause water quality impairment does this plan address? Because I apologize, I haven't had a chance to look at the draft?
So we identify aquatic invasive species, places where flow is altered, like for the generation of hydroelectric power. We identify damming where, damming and then undersized, or, degraded, road infrastructure, so bridges, culverts, dams, that impede the movement of aquatic organisms in their aquatic environment, as well as can affect the movement of sediment and nutrients. See, I'm trying to think of the other, other pollutants of concern outside of this basin and other basins across the state, nitrogen in the Connecticut River basins. Nitrogen is a pollutant of concern that's addressed through these tactical basin plans that are in the Connecticut River basins. Did that answer your question?
Well, yeah, I'm just wondering then why, for example, are, say, pesticides or petroleum products not something that is looked at in terms of water quality?
We do include a section in the most recent plans that are coming out this year on PFAS. That's an update to the plans, as well as the chloride monitoring. We really are tied to where we have monitoring data or assessment data to drive the inclusion of that information into a tactical basin plan. If we don't have information to suggest that there's a need to provide a listing or an impairment, or to take some action, if we don't have monitoring or assessment data to support that, we don't include it in the plans. And so the exclusion of that information is really just driven by the fact that we might not have those data, or we might not have them at a sufficient level to warrant their inclusion into the plan at this point in time.
Okay, because I can tell you that the Department of Agriculture has data about pesticide contamination, especially neonicotinoid pesticides in river streams, for example. So that's something you might want to consider starting to expand, especially as we get more and more extreme weather events and flooding, which is going to throw not just phosphorus, because it always seems to be about phosphorus, but there's a lot of other things that get thrown into the water. And I'm always wondering why it's such a narrow focus on just phosphorus when there's so many other issues that really should be addressed. And when we're not looking at them, they're just going to get worse. You might make progress on phosphorus, but then you're allowing other things to get worse. And overall, our water quality may not actually improve. And that's my concern.
And the neonicotinoids, you're not the first person to raise that as a point of concern. We do know about the data that the Agency of Agriculture has and the reports that are available through them, and other pollutants of concern. Again, it doesn't mean that we won't include those in future tactical basin plans, but at this point in time, we just don't have enough information or monitoring data to warrant their inclusion at the basin scale. But your point is noted. Thank you.
Would there be any effort to actually start trying to collect more of that data so that you can actually evaluate whether it needs to be included in the plan or not?
That would be a question that would have to go through the Watershed Management Division, as they are the division tasked with the monitoring of the surface waters of the state that are included and presented as a part of this plan. I could ask Bethany Sargent or Pete Laflamme if there are any plans to incorporate some of those other pollutants of concern. If you, again, would like to have this question or comment included as a part of the public record, please put it in writing or send it to me via email directly, and I'm happy to make sure that it's included in the responsiveness summary.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for your question and your point.
Okay, so we'll turn to, are there any questions from those on Zoom? Cheryl.
I do. Just generally speaking, how does the Otter Creek Basin compare to other basins around the state? Just curious if, if we're seeing some improvement, and other our basins may also be showing improvement, or just how do we in general stack up?
Wow, that's a great question and a complex question. All the best questions are complex ones. Thank you for that, Cheryl. So I'm a glass half full kind of person, and so I want to highlight the progress that the Basin 3 Clean Water Service Provider has made in a really short amount of time. They have the shortest time frame by which to try to achieve their phosphorus reduction targets. Again, forgive me for speaking directly to phosphorus in this case, but I do think that that's one example of where this basin is really setting a high bar, setting a standard, and really affecting positive change with respect to water quality in this area. It's a complex basin for a number of reasons, not the least of which is its shape. It's sort of this, lengthy basin that spans quite a diverse area as far as land uses are concerned. And so we do have a lot of high quality waters and really beautiful headwater systems and streams that don't get as much lip service or face time with the public, because when we present these plans, we often do want to focus on where we know we have water quality issues and where we're going to take action to make improvements in the future. But there are, in the Green Mountains, speaking of the Forest Service, in those headwater systems, there are some really lovely, very high quality headwater streams and lakes and ponds above 2,500 feet, for example, that are just again, don't maybe get as much airtime as we would like. So I think that's worth noting in this basin. Another thing that I'll note, and not to leave us on a bad note, but just to say that there is a lot of ag land use in a portion of this basin. But I think that actually is really an opportunity for us in our basin to work through the QUISPs, where we have 10% of that ag phosphorus reduction goal that we can make progress on in the non-regulatory sphere. That's an opportunity for us in the next 5 years to really make progress. And I will say that we, through the Champlain Valley Farmer Coalition, UVM Extension, Addison County River Watch Collaborative, we have a lot of, and the conservation districts, we have a lot of really strong partners working in the ag sector to help farmers, to reach out to farmers, and to try to do those best management practices that we know really lead to improved water quality associated with our agricultural landscapes. So yeah, more to come. I don't know that I really cast our basin in a comparative light to other basins, because I think that's a really difficult, if not impossible, task, because the basins are so context specific, so that the topography, the landscape that that these waters move through, that they exist in, really do drive and determine the water quality at the river basin scale. So again, a really complex, wonderful question. I appreciate that, Cheryl. Would be happy to chat with you at some point face to face if we have the opportunity to do so. I encourage you to take a look at the plan, and if you have any follow-up questions specifically about your interests in this basin, please share those with me via email. I'm happy to respond.
Oh, thanks, Angie.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
So we probably should move on unless someone has a really, really pressing question. Probably should move on to the business agenda. So Angie, just thank you so much for the detailed. Oh yeah, I'm sorry.
Can we ask one
Oh,
more question?
sure, of course. Yeah.
Go ahead, Anna.
I'm very curious how this plan intersects with any kind of accountability strategies for making sure that the targets are met? Is it legislated? Is it public interest? I mean, you've described partnerships, but when push comes to shove, how do we get these targets met if people aren't doing voluntarily what you're saying should be done?
You asking about the phosphorus TMDL or just the water quality goals that we outline in the plan in general? Just to
goals.
clarify.
Yes, the goals to keep the water clean, to prevent toxic things from getting in. I mean, I understand that the clogging of some of the lakes with the foreign exotic plants is a problem too, but I'm more concerned about the toxic effects of various things, just like Ross talked about too. There's many more than phosphorus.
Sure. So that's a wonderful question. And I presented it as part of the story map, but I'm happy to share a link with you directly. The Clean Water Initiative Performance Report is an annual report that's presented to the legislature and it's available to the public. We are putting together the Basin 3 report. I'm putting together the Basin 3 report card right now, which looks back at the last 5 years of work that we've accomplished in this basin. And I will explicitly address every strategy in that plan and provide a status report out in that report to let you folks know what progress we've made and where we have the opportunity to make progress in the future. Some of the strategies admittedly may carry over to some extent. If we don't get to those and they're still relevant and important strategies, we don't just discard them and move on to the next thing. We want to continue to move that strategy forward and see action happen. So we are accountable. We do report out, as I did with the sort of donut chart that I shared, 93% of those strategies are either active or complete, which is, most of our plans, when we do that type of retrospective analysis, we see between 80 and 90 to 95% of the strategies that we identify having some sort of action taken. Either they're complete or they're actively being pursued. And so that helps keep us accountable. The fact that we have to create these report cards and those are reviewed by the legislature.
I wasn't thinking about your department or division being accountable, but more the landowners who are polluting held accountable.
Or I think that gets into more of a regulatory space and a compliance space than our tactical basin plans are able to address. So I'll leave it at that because these plans really don't go to that next step with respect. We do address some regulatory programs and pathways to implement clean water solutions and do this clean water work together. What we don't do is really go down into the details about compliance. That's definitely not in our purview. So
Thank you.
Are there any other questions before we end our program? Hearing none. So again, thank you so much, Angie, for coming and presenting this. As it says in our agenda for the day, in our full commission package, if folks want to send comments, there's a timeline there, a due date of October 24th. Angie has her email address there. She also has her address if you prefer postal mail. There will also be another hearing, which will be on October 15th next week from 7 to 8:30 before the Rutland Regional Planning Commission. And there's a Teams link. So yeah, thank you so much, Angie, for coming and sharing.
thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Angie.
So with that, we will move on to our business agenda. And the first item up for our business agenda is the approval of minutes for the September 11th, 2024 meeting. Does anyone know any errors or omissions with the minutes from that day?
Motion to approve as presented.
Great. Was that Ross?
Yep.
Yep, great. So we have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, second, the motion is to approve the minutes of the September 11th, 2024 meeting. Does anyone have any additional comments or questions? Hearing none, all those in favor of approval of the minutes, say aye or raise your hand or some such. Great.
Aye.
Aye.
And any opposed, nay. And any abstentions? Okay, the ayes have it, and you've approved the minutes of the September 11th, 2024 meeting. The next item on the business agenda is a review of the executive board minutes from September 25th, 2024. We do not approve those, but does anyone have any questions regarding those? Hearing none. As a reminder, as always, if people have questions, they're welcome to contact anyone on the executive board, including myself, but anyone. I'm sure Adam also would be happy to answer any questions you may have. So with that, we now move on to the treasurer's report, looking at the financials. It says here through August 31st, 2024. And I'll hand it over to Adam.
Great, thank you, Joe. So the financials are in your package. I'll give you a brief highlight of them. These are for the first 2 months ending August 31st of our fiscal year 2025, so July 1st through August 31st. If I look at the statement of financial activities first, we had revenues of roughly $161,000, expenses of $193,000. So we're running basically a deficit for the first 2 months of $32,000 roughly. I am not overly concerned about that. We tend to do a lot of billing at the quarters, so there's a lot of billing that we do, say in June, July, August, that doesn't get billed until September. So I expect that next month we will make up for that and get back to a surplus condition. So I'd like to, really hold any questions on that and assume for right now it's just a timing issue. I'd be happy to take questions, but right now I think it's mostly timing. And one of the other reasons I'm not concerned or as concerned, the statement of financial position has us very strong. It does show the $31,000 deficit there, but still with over, roughly, let's see, total equity of about $400,000, including the roughly $90,000 that we made last year. So we've got plenty of cash on hand. Happy to take any questions on that as well.
Hearing no questions, we can have a motion to approve the treasurer's report as read.
Motion to approve, Steve Ravel.
Thank you, Steve. Do you have a second?
Second.
Jeremy, go ahead.
I saw Jeremy first, so I will go with Jeremy. Is there any discussion of the treasurer's report? Okay, all those in favor of approving the treasurer's report as read, please say aye or indicate.
Aye.
Aye.
And any opposed, please say nay or indicate with the thumbs down. And are there any abstentions? The ayes have it, and you have approved the treasurer's report as read by Adam. The next item on the agenda for the commission are committee reports, beginning with Act 250.
Act 250 did not meet, but we have an upcoming joint meeting with the Energy Commission, and that would be on the 21st at 5 o'clock. And we're generally going to discuss the certificate of public good related to the Vermont gas program. End of report.
Thank you, Steve. Next is energy.
Yeah, go figure. We're going to be meeting together. The Energy Committee did meet. I say that every month. So we met with Maddie for the last time last month, and we focused on 3 major things. One is the enhanced energy plan. which Maddie has finished because she's not there anymore. So she finished it up, talked about the latest updates that she was doing. She shared a folder with the Energy Committee for our contributions if we wanted to make comments. She shared them in a folder that I believe was set up so that we could individually look at it. I'm happy to share that again. Honestly, I've been traveling. I have not looked at it, but I will before Monday. The second thing was the Energy Fair final preparations. We had the Energy Fair on the 21st of September, which went very well. We had lots of positive comments from vendors and folks that attended the fair. And Leander helped us out, our new Eco AmeriCorps person that's working for the Regional Planning Commission. So Leander was there representing. And the last thing was just focusing on the MERP updates because the deadline was extended for more applications for MERP money. And so we focused on that. That is now closed. So and a lot more people applied for more funding at the last minute that they were allowed to. I don't know the results of that yet, but that was what we focused on. And then as Steve said, on the 21st at 5 o'clock, we'll have a combined meeting to take a look at the PUC involvement with the certificate of good for Vermont Gas. And that's it.
Thank you, Cheryl. Next up is local government.
Local government did not meet, but we will be doing a review of the Waltham Town Plan sometime in the near future.
Thank you, Shannon. Next is natural resources.
Natural resources has not met.
Okay, thank you. Next is the TAC.
We extended a deadline and for a grant and we'll be acting on hopefully the one from Middlebury and the any new ones that have come up. I have not checked with Mike to see what the status of that is, but I should probably do a better job of knowing the status for the next meeting.
Great, thank you very much. After that, we have housing.
Yeah, housing met just before our commission meeting tonight. We briefly discussed the Cornwall study that Anna's going to be, well, they've finished, but she'll be reviewing. I believe that's going to be the next week or next month, maybe next week. And we're still looking at basically some prioritization and categorizing the 21 towns in an effort to start basically an education and dialogue in regards to Act 181. That's about it.
Great, thank you. And the final one is economic development, which did not meet. So with that being said, the next item on the agenda is joint partners reports, delegate and staff recognition. And I see Darren's name there, so I'll just hand it over to Adam because I don't know why that is.
Well, let's first ask Fred Kenny if he has anything he wants to report as one of our partners here.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. Just that I have hired a new office manager. She'll start October 21st, so that's a good step forward. And the Middlebury Thermal Energy Working Group is moving forward with some efforts to identify some potential thermal energy networks in Middlebury. In fact, we meet tomorrow on Exchange Street and then at your office with some folks in the Washington Street area. These are all businesses and organizations and entities that might be interested in sharing heat or exploring thermal energy. And then the third potential area is the library. And they are pursuing thermal energy for the library expansion. And we're working with them to, we being the working group, not me, to explore, tying in other, like the town offices and others around that project into thermal. That's all I have for now.
Thanks,
Thank you,
Fred.
Fred.
And is it fair to say that we may be able to use some of your office administrators' time to help out April with some of our own office administration?
Yes, I've worked that into the discussion with the candidate, and we'll set up a meeting to find out what you need.
Great, thank you. And let's see, the staff recognition I have on here is for Darren Rickson. Darren's been was with us for about a year. Unfortunately, Darren recently just took another job. So Darren had been doing a lot with the clean water service provider and a fair amount with hazard mitigation plans. Unfortunately, he moved on. So we are also advertising for that position. So we've got a fair amount of hiring going on, which is why I wanted to highlight that at least Fred has helped us out, hopefully fill one hole. So I did want to thank Darren for his work here too. I mean, that's specifically the most important reason he's on there. He was, here for a short time. He learned a lot. Really nice guy, did good work, and we wish him the best.
And definitely congratulations to him, and sad for us but I hope he is successful in his new role. And so I guess with that, we'll move on to the old business, which starts with a Maple broadband update.
I don't know if we have Steve.
No, I know Steve Huffaker is on vacation this week. So,
great.
Ross, would you like to give that report?
Basically met yesterday, last night, pretty much blown through most of the ARPA funding that we had. And so now we're really starting to focus on the BEAD funding, which is the next round of grants that's going to come up, and hoping that if we're successful in getting those grants, then we should be able to pretty much build out the rest of the county with that money, with some private borrowing. We're trying to keep it to a minimal so we can keep our rates competitive and accessible for everybody in terms of broadband access. And so we're looking at, right now, we think, we went over the proposed budget, we're looking at maybe $2 million of having to take on debt for $2 million to try to fund out the rest of the build out. But that will pretty much should cover all of our county, the entire county, all the towns that are members of Maple Broadband, and provide, the goal, which is meet our goal, which is to make sure every single household in the county has access to fiber optic cable broadband access, broadband.
And it was reported that they had, as of last week, 448 customers live receiving.
Right. And see, when you figure 2 years ago, we had nothing, we started from nothing. We feel like we've been doing pretty darn good. We also just hired a new marketing firm, which we find and feel is doing a much better job at half the rate. So we're also making progress in other areas, and we hope that they're going to help us to deal with the stiff competition. As was noted earlier, the legislature wanted to get everyone hooked up to broadband, so they created these communication union districts. And all that did really was get the commercial broadband providers that have been here for decades to finally get off their butts and start building things out, because they could see somebody else is going to take all that business. So everyone, things are looking pretty good, at least here in Addison County.
Yeah, and on the subject of the marketing firm, I had the pleasure of being interviewed by them to get my feedback for the work that they're doing, and it was really comprehensive. They wanted all the good and all the bad, and so it was a really excellent experience for me. And so I think that, yeah, I'm happy that, they're working on that and trying to get customer feedback, because I think I was one of the first customers, which is cool. Any questions about Maple broadband? Okay, hearing none, we'll move on to the annual report for fiscal year 2024 with Adam.
Great, so so that's a report on basically last fiscal year, which ran from July 1st, 2023 to June 30th, 2024. I included it in your package. I'd encourage you all to read it. It's a nice summary of a lot of the work that we as a commission do. So it includes all the topics from housing to broadband to water, wastewater, natural resources, brownfields, etc. And there's some good information about the things that we have been accomplishing within the region together. So it's a nice primer, and I hope you all will appreciate it.
Great, thank you very much. Any questions? There's one other piece of old business, which is last month we spoke about a review of the bylaws and that we would be looking at as an executive board. I was out of town at my sister-in-law's wedding, getting caught up in Hurricane Helene, which was interesting. But anyway, that's why it hadn't been acted on by the executive board, but we will be talking about it at our next meeting. So next thing is new business, and the new business, a commissioner survey for legislative report.
So earlier this week, or no, excuse me, probably late last week or early last week, Darren sent out to all of you a survey. Basically, it is for a legislative report. So in the legislation that created I have a hard time with Act numbers. It was House 687. I guess it's Act 181. It's the Act 250 and Housing Bill. There was also a provision where the RPCs would do an assessment and report back to the legislature. The survey that we sent to you, well, we the RPCs, so all of the RPCs, and together we're known as VAPTA, the Vermont Association of Planning and Development Agencies, hired NATO, the National Association of Development Organizations, to put together that survey for all of the RPCs around the state. So, and not only have I asked you to do it, all my counterparts have asked all your counterparts to do it as well, to give us a comprehensive look. There was also a survey that went out to select boards, planning commissions, our local constituents, and then the NATO also did surveys with statewide stakeholders. So largely the Agency of Natural Resources, Agency of Transportation, Agency of Commerce, people that we have contractual or grant relationships with, that where we get our funding. So they will put that together for us as a report. I will give you the feedback you've given us as well as other stakeholders, and also give you a comprehensive review of all the RPCs together. And later this year, when we put that together, and ultimately it will go into a report for the legislature. So, and I'd originally, in the note, I said the 11th, we've actually extended that to the 18th. So you have another week to take that survey. It's not very long. You don't have to answer every question if you don't want to. We fixed that little glitch on it. So please take it if you can, and we look forward to the feedback and learning.
When was that sent out? I've been trying to find it.
Darren Rickson sent it to you on the 3rd of September. October 3rd, excuse me.
So was it an email?
It was in an email.
Email.
Yes.
I missed that one.
Didn't come out, I think it came out right before the email for this.
A couple of days prior to, yeah. Yep.
Are there any additional questions for Adam? Okay, hearing none, we're now moving on to members or other. Is there any other new business? I'm sorry. Hearing none there, we'll move on to members' concerns and information. Does anyone have any announcements or anything like that? I do have one small announcement. We are in Orwell attempting to purchase Buxton Store, the building, not the actual business. And as a community trust, because unfortunately Buxton's is closing after approximately 57 years or so. And so there will be, there's an article in the Brandon Reporter about that today. There should be one in the Addy Indy tomorrow. So, and if anyone has any expertise with that, please let me know. Any other announcements?
Is that expertise in buying, buying stores? Or expertise in running Buxton's?
Well, I know someone with expertise in that. But I was thinking more expertise with community trusts, conversion of buildings in town into nonprofit community trust owned type things. I'm just sort of it's been done a few times in the county. Also, next door in Benson, they're doing that right now, rebuilding the old general store there. But I'm sort of looking to network and connect with others that have worked on similar projects.
Steve Revelle from Lincoln, good luck.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
We're there to help you.
Oh, great. I will reach out to you.
Jeremy
Thanks.
Grip from Ripton. We went through this a few years ago. If you can get a local residential luminary to do a front page piece for the New York Times, it helps.
That's good to know. I'll go looking.
Thank you for those words of wisdom.
You've got a lot of people behind you.
Thank you. Thank you. I very much appreciate that. And it's definitely something we want to help preserve here in our town.
Let's get it on.
Thanks.
And Steve Pilcher from Moncton, I obviously can recommend Preservation Trust of Vermont, who does that kind of work extensively.
Cool, thanks. Yeah, it seems like they're the nexus of all of this when it comes to these sort of old buildings and trying to keep them, useful and everything like that. So yeah, thank you. Other announcements? Okay, hearing no other announcements, absent without objection, we will adjourn until November 13th at 7 p.m. Is there any objection to that? Okay, so ordered. We are adjourned until 7 p.m. on November 13th. Thank you all very much, and I look forward to seeing you then.
There we go.
Thank you.
Bye. Bye. I am wearing gloves. It's cold.
It's a very well attended meeting. I think I